Welcome to the Options Save Lives weekly live stream, where we spend an hour each week exploring life-improving topics through a lens of alcohol recovery and the Sinclair Method. Every week, we take on a new question, topic, or common challenge to empower people to either build a better relationship with alcohol or to eliminate it completely. Episodes are filmed live on Twitch at twitch.tv/C3 Foundation, and the audience is encouraged to ask questions and engage with the host and guests. The Options Save Lives weekly stream is hosted by Executive Director Jenny Williamson and is produced by the C3 Foundation with the support of R Street Institute and other generous sponsors. For more information about the C3 Foundation or the Sinclair Method, visit our website at c3foundation.org. Hello, everyone. How are you today? Thanks for tuning in to the Options Save Lives weekly live stream. As always, I'm Jenny Williamson, Executive Director at the C3 Foundation, and your host for the next hour. How is everybody today? We are broadcasting live from the C3 office here in Fort Myers, Florida. Where are you guys watching from? Let us know in the chat. And if you are a first timer to the stream, welcome. Make sure you pop in and say hello. This week, we're going to talk about Dry January with Moderation Management's Mary Reid. How many of you out there in our live audience are doing Dry January this year? All right. Well, I see our normal people are out there in the audience. Thanks a lot. So we are thrilled to have Mary with us today because for some reason, there are a lot of misconceptions about the compatibility of alcohol-free challenges like Dry January with harm reduction and moderation modalities like the Sinclair Method. So we hope that by the time our hour is up today, that you'll understand how Dry January, the Sinclair Method, and moderation management can all be combined to help you reach your alcohol reduction, moderation, or elimination goals. So how many of you out there have some questions or experience with Dry January or moderation management before we begin? So if you do, go ahead and put those questions in the chat area as soon as you have them, and we will go through them all, as many as we can, at the Q&A at the end. So before we dive in, let me go ahead and introduce our guests today. Mary Reid is the Executive Director of Moderationmanagementnetwork.org, a peer support community that supports its members in their choice to change their relationship with alcohol, whether that be by pursuing moderation or abstinence for a period of time. Moderation Management hosts dryuary.org every January for anyone who wants to take a break from drinking for the month. So Mary first reached out to C3 about 3.5 years ago. Since then, Claudia has been a guest for at least one of Moderation Management's events, and we've been looking for the right opportunity to include Mary on one of our broadcasts. So we are thrilled that you're here today, Mary. Go ahead and say hi, and we can make sure that our audience can hear you.
Hi, everybody, and I'm thrilled to be here. And it's nice to meet Jenny face-to-face and connect with you guys.
So before we get in, one of the staples of our show is to start with an easy little icebreaker. So, Mary, what is your favorite thing about January or the beginning of a new year?
I think it's all the possibilities of the coming year. I think, I've done away with the resolution thing for years, but I always looking towards growth. And it's always just kind of fun to sit there and consider the changes you want to make in the next year. One of the biggest tools for me when I first started trying to change my relationship with alcohol is I wrote down a description, a word description of who I wanted to be at 5 years from then. And that description didn't come true, but it got me going. So I think it's always fun to look ahead or exciting.
Well, yeah, that one of the things that I love about January and a new year is basically just from standpoint of working in the nonprofit field is November and December, the end of the year, is absolutely chaotic in nonprofit work. And I imagine with Dry January, yours probably continues all throughout the month as well, with it being the busiest time or a very busy time for you. So January for me, a lot of people are running headlong into their new ideas and goals. For me, it's a time to kind of sit back and finally take a breath. I'm a planner, so that's when I like to sit down and just say, okay, what am I going to do now? And that's when I start making my lists and everything else. So I kind of shift mine a month beyond. But like you, I stopped doing New Year's resolutions quite a while back. It's literally the only New Year's resolution I've ever kept was to never do one again.
There you go.
So why don't you start off, Mary, by telling us a little bit of a history of Dry January?
Okay. Well, the Dry January campaigns, or the Dry Month campaigns, actually started over in the UK, I believe about 10 years ago, 2012. I am not really sure when MM got involved in it. And it kind of was, it doesn't make much sense for a program that supports people who want to moderate to do a Dry Month campaign. But the way it happened is that one of our board members saw the great response that the UK was having in Australia and said, let's bring this over to the US. And he didn't really have the resources. I'm not sure we had the resources, but he asked for our help in basically writing the daily post, getting the word out, setting up the website. And so we did. And actually the first few years, I finally got involved either in 2014, 2015, I'm not sure. We weren't even really allowed to mention MM. And I know you guys probably all have your little catchphrases and terms that you use. We couldn't use any of ours like absing or modding, because it was supposed to be totally separate from moderation management. And it was supposed to be modeled after the ones in the UK, which is really a government driven campaign to not necessarily focused with people that identify with having a problem with alcohol, just a alcohol-based campaign, but also to raise funds for cancer research or cancer hospitals. So that's how it started out with the MM. And it was kind of like, okay, we're going to all act like we don't have a drinking problem. We're not concerned about it. We're going to make this fun and light and just get people to take a break. It has never really taken off in the US with that focus. And our members came to rely on it as a month for a break from alcohol. So we've kind of evolved to where it is basically focused for people that are concerned about their drinking, either for the last few months during the holiday season or as it's grown through COVID, and they just want a break. So we do address the people that are concerned about their drinking and want a break from drinking. They want to feel the benefits of taking a break.
Well, you actually answered my next questions, which were how long have you been involved in it and how they've changed and grown over the years. So, so that's great. It says we're on the same page for what we want to really talk about here. So some people are just starting to reduce their alcohol consumption, and they might find a full Dry January a little bit overwhelming. So why don't we talk a little bit about ways that they can still take part in Dry January, but in a way that's more manageable? Maybe even if that means shifting a little bit to more of a damp January. So tell me about your experience since you've got, what is that, 6-8 years now of doing this, in helping people ease in when they feel like an entire month may be overwhelming.
Okay. I see this as kind of followed the same evolution that MM has. As many people that have known about MM for years, there used to be a real hard line about to join MM, you've got to get 30 days abstinence first, and if you can't do that, then probably MM is not for you. that kept me from joining for MM for like 20 years.
Wow.
And we never want anybody to do that, you know. So the same thing was with dry area when it started. It was supposed to be a strictly abstinent program. And if a person chooses that, every individual knows himself. So if you're an individual that sets yourself up, that I have a goal and I have to meet that 100%, then go for it, you know. But we do have a lot of people that are going for what we call the drier January. And we wouldn't want anybody to miss out on the benefits of dryuary because they've got a birthday coming up, they've got a wedding coming up, or they just slip one night and they say, okay, now I can't do dryuary because, you know, I had a drink. Now I'm off. I'm going to unsubscribe. I'm not going to enjoy any of the rest of the benefits. I'm just going to say, forget it. So, you know, you'll find that it's relaxed quite a bit through the years, and that you will find people on there that are plan to have a drink at some point, or ones that have already slipped and said, oh, I feel so bad. And it's like, okay, you make the decision. You make the decision of whether you want to continue and try to get more dry days in and how it's going to benefit you, or whether you want to pursue a different path. So it's really up to the individual and how hard they are on themselves. And we try to encourage them not to be that hard on themselves, to be forgiving. And of course, anyone that's been drinking daily or heavily daily shouldn't do dryuary. I mean, shouldn't, unless they've kind of done a taper off or gotten to a point where they're comfortable, then it's dangerous. So it's really basically a month to try to do the best you can, to try to get what benefits you can out of it, no matter whether you're 100% successful or not.
And there's a resilience factor in that as well, in the sense that if you're giving it a shot and you slip up, or whether it's a slip up or whether it's an event and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to drink today. Being able to then turn around and say, okay, yeah, my plan was 30 days abstinent, but I had a drink or two yesterday. I still have 3 weeks left in the month. Let's talk a little bit about the benefit of remembering that resilience and building that resilience to be able to say, okay, I wasn't perfect, but I can still move forward.
And you can still get the confidence in yourself from it. You know, even the big campaigns like in the UK, they give out what's called golden tickets or golden coupons. So if somebody has a plan to drink that month, they donate another $25 to golden coupon, you know, and that kind of relieves some of that guilt, and it's going to a good cause. So we said that in our first post for dryuary this year. If you plan to have a drink this month and you're going to beat yourself up about it, and you want to give a donation to your favorite charity or MM, or whether that be C3 Foundation, if that helps release some of the guilt that you're feeling. But, you know, I think we all can make sense of, okay, if I slip up once, if I slip up twice, and I still get 28 days, there's a lot of benefit in that. I probably had 10 people sign up today who said, okay, I didn't think I was going to do this, but I want to do it now. And that's fine.
Yeah, it's never too late to start.
Right.
And there's such a benefit in challenging yourself to see where you're at as well. And that's something that, you know, maybe you're not there, but maybe you are, and you haven't given yourself enough credit. So, in your opinion, what are some of the most important tools people need to be successful during dry January?
I think they have to have a plan, and don't underestimate how large a presence alcohol is in our life. You know, we all think we're going to be able to go and go about our daily processes, you know, do our daily routines, and we'll just cut out alcohol. And the biggest thing that people find out is that all of a sudden they're there and they don't know what to do with themselves without drinking. They don't cook. They've never cooked without drinking, having a glass of wine. They've never sat down and played a game with the kids, or they've never watched a Netflix show without sitting there with a drink. So don't underestimate that. It's big, and it takes a while to actually fill those hours. You think, well, I'm busy anyway, but you'll be surprised at how much alcohol slows us down and takes time away from us that we don't realize. And I know when I actually, through I abstained for 8 years. And when I first decided to abstain for the foreseeable future, I filled every minute of every day. It was almost like a frantic thing, a manic. Okay, today at 9:10, I'm going to do this. And at 9:15, I'm doing this. And for me, that was kind of necessary, but it got exhausting, but it was necessary at first. And after a while, you're able to relax that and kind of just enjoy feeling normal without, and doing your normal things without alcohol. The other thing to really consider is that the first week is usually uncomfortable for people because of the urges, not necessarily because of withdrawals, but sleep seems to be the biggest problem people have, is finding out how to sleep without having those drinks to get them to sleep. And we just today, before I came on here, a lady was like, yesterday she'd written and said, oh my God, I can't stand it. I can't sleep. When does this go away? And I said, well, tonight. She woke up today and she said, oh my God, I feel great. So funny thing is that usually sleep is what will cause a lot of people to break their commitment on Dryuary, because they've just got to get to sleep and they don't know any other way to do it.
Now, we have a lot of people that watch our streams and are trying to help friends and family members who are on the Sinclair Method. And so can you talk a little bit about how having somebody in your support system do Dry January with you, what are the benefits of that for both?
I think, we often have couples that do it together, and that's always good because it takes away that temptation you have from your partner sitting there saying, well, it's 5:00 and I'm going to have my glass of wine, and you're not having yours. And that is a big problem with some people. Also, when you're wavering, you have somebody to turn to and say, yay, I'm feeling weak about it, a accountability buddy, and hopefully they'll say, okay, you can do this. We can do this. We're doing this together. Hopefully they won't say, we're feeling weak too. Let's just have one, but I think it does help. And I think also it takes away, if you do it in a collective group, when you sign up for Dryuary, and as more people become aware of the Dry January campaigns, you can sit there and tell people that are asking you, your friends sitting there saying, oh, I'm having a party tonight. And you say, well, I'm not drinking. And they say, why? It takes away some of that stigma that we all are always worried about, when we say, well, we're not drinking or we're slowing down, that people automatically say, oh my God, you have a drinking problem, or I don't want to hang around with you anymore. If you can say, I'm doing Dry January because I'm going to, donate all the money that I saved to charity, or I just want to get a healthy start, it takes away some of that pressure.
And I mean, one of the things that we see, especially as a benefit to support systems, is a lot of times the member of the relationship who does not struggle with alcohol can build a little bit of empathy toward their loved one, because they start noticing then when they might have just randomly grabbed for alcohol. And I've always thought, as someone who has been blessed to have not become addicted through my dangerous drinking years, that, I mean, I'm lucky that I didn't become addicted. But if it can be difficult for me as someone who is not addicted to say, oh, wait, no, I made a commitment not to drink, then how much more difficult is that for somebody who physically, chemically became addicted to alcohol? So it's an empathy builder as well that can help people to understand where their loved one is coming from and the struggles that they're going through. So we've always tried to encourage loved ones to try to step alongside those alcohol-free challenges with their loved one on the Sinclair Method for that.
And I think another advantage to that is, so often when someone's in a relationship with somebody that has a problem drinking or is addicted, and it's causing problems in the relationship, and it's causing problems in that other person's personal life. It affects everybody around us. It's so easy to sit there and say, just quit, go to AA, just quit. But they've never experienced what life is with somebody that is not drinking at all, that their life's going to have to change too, that their circle of friends will change, that their social activities will change, and they just see, okay, if you quit drinking, all our problems will be solved. And that's just not the truth. There are new problems that come along with it.
It would be wonderful if it were that easy.
So it's kind of like a trial. It's like, okay, you want me to quit drinking? Let's do this for a month, and let's see how you feel about it after that.
And you mentioned sleep, but what other kind of struggles or stumbling blocks do you see that people have to prepare for that can pop up for people trying to do dry January the first time?
Again, the social interactions. Some people are really uncomfortable that they cannot be around anybody that's drinking or around alcohol or have alcohol in the house or socialize at all with their friends because they're not drinking. Luckily, I never had that problem. I knew when I quit for that period that my husband still drank daily. All my friends drank, and I like bars. And so I knew that was going to be part of my recovery. But that is a problem for some. So they feel isolated. Boredom is probably a big thing because, as I said, not only do you not know what to do when you're not drinking, everything's going to feel kind of flat for a while. Drinking enhances our feelings, and so the good feelings and the bad feelings. So it makes everything a little more interesting, and it takes a while to get back to that normal sense of feeling and actually feeling. It's kind of a shock the first time you really laugh when you're not drinking. It's like it's so different and it feels so good, or to feel really like joy that's not brought about by drinking. But the other down part of that is that sometimes it's really hard to feel anything. You just feel flat.
And how would someone plan for that feeling to be able to deal with it?
Oh gosh, I think first of all, to plan before you actually start the campaign, before you start dry January, kind of start making your plans for what you want to do that month that you wouldn't be able to do if you were drinking. Maybe an interest that you used to have that has gone away because you're spending too much time drinking. Try to actually maybe do a little more self-exploration, self-care. For me, the biggest thing that really helped me, I love routines. I love rituals. So I built rituals around not drinking. I loved my nightly ritual. Some people meditate. Some people, I'm a Catholic. I do my rosary, which is kind of a meditation, but it's my 1 hour a day where I'm set and I'm quiet. That became something that I didn't want to give up to drinking again, that I didn't want to lose once I started moderating and drinking again. And it's an incentive to stay within my limits. So it's to make it, to explore. I always say exploration, to make it an adventure, to make it an exploration of yourself and of what you enjoy outside of drinking.
And what do you find are some of the top benefits that people have from doing dry January?
Once the sleep thing gets figured out in the first week, they love the sleep. That's one thing that everybody's usually really surprised by, how much better they sleep. The mood, alcohol's a depressant. And even if you're moderating, I can tell when I moderate, if I drink 3 days in a row, my mood is lower, and so mood's better. Even people today are already reporting after our 7th day here that they can feel a difference in their mood. And we never really quite realize until it's gone how much more difficult alcohol drinking makes everything in life. You wake up and you're tired. It makes going to work harder. You're kind of fuzzy. So it makes doing the things that work harder. So it's kind of like a relief to just kind of set it aside for a while.
All right. And what kind of advice do you have for people once January ends? Like, what then?
Well, one benefit, I was going to mention that when you asked about that they are showing, that studies are showing that people that do dryuary do tend to reduce their drinking further on in the year. There's been several articles about that, that it carries over. Now, we hear a lot of people say that it starts to escalate again once the holiday season comes around, or, when stressors come. Everybody's been stressed with COVID. So that escalates. But really, to make your plan, take this month when you're clear-headed and you're feeling those benefits and you don't want to lose them. Start making a plan about, how am I going to do this? How am I going to not lose this when I drink? How much do I want to drink? And maybe start looking for your other support options like C3 Foundation or Moderate or any of the programs out there that will help you.
So why do you think that there is still a misconception that harm reduction and moderation is incompatible with alcohol-free challenges like this?
I don't really know. I mean, I think because the people that are pursuing harm reduction and moderation are afraid of being abstinent. So there's that fear, and there's a fear of failure. So they say, well, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to abstain to begin with. And so they're not going to set themselves up for success. But, as I said earlier, when I joined MM, which was probably 12 years ago, the 30 was a big deal. And if you couldn't do a 30-day abstinence, you shouldn't be in MM. And it kept me from joining for decades. And so then I thought, well, I've got to have some help, and I'm not ready to abstain. And so I'm just going to join MM. I don't know if I thought that people were going to knock on my door to see if I was drinking or what. And I'm just not going to tell anybody I'm not doing a 30. And so I joined and had no intention of ever doing a 30-day abstinent period. And then about a month after I was there, somebody said, would you buddy up with me? And I said, oh, okay. So I did, and I didn't make it. And I made it 20 plus days or so. And so, okay, and now I'm going to moderate. And I did that over and over for a year. I'd moderate for maybe 10 days successfully. And then I'd go right back to my old drinking habits, which was daily heavy drinking. And then I'd say, okay, now I'm going to do a 30. And it was just a rinse and repeat over and over for a year. Probably tried at least six different 30s. Always made it to 20 days or so, but never succeeded. So at the end of the year, I felt like a total failure. I couldn't moderate. I couldn't get a 30, but I'd kept track of how many abstinent days I had. And because I didn't succeed at 30s and kept trying, I had been abstinent over 66% of the year. And this was somebody who was a daily heavy, that didn't even count wine as drinking. It was only the hard liquor that counted. And I thought, well, I can do this. And so I had lost my fear of abstinence. So I think that is probably why there is some hesitation to push abstinent periods on people that are just trying to moderate and harm reduction.
Now, you said something that I have seen over and over again in people using the Sinclair Method. You said at the end of your year, you felt like a failure. You felt like you had just failed every time you tried to do something, and you felt miserable about yourself. And then you go back and you see that you had a 66%, 2/3 of the year you were actually succeeding. Whereas if you hadn't tried, it would have been zero.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And it's always amazing to me how the human mind works. We are so bad at looking at large spans of time, and we are also very bad at recognizing our own successes. We're such our own worst critic. And you tracking those alcohol-free days, very similar to what we do, is we have people on the Sinclair Method track their drinks, and so it's data that just exists. It's neither good nor bad, but it can tell you objectively how you've done. And you were able to turn from feeling like a failure and feeling like you had not succeeded at what you were trying to do, or even making yourself better along the way, looked at the data and said, oh, wow.
I know. It was a surprise. And I hate tracking, actually. And I don't have any of the apps or anything. But what I did that year was really simple. I had just got a paper calendar and wrote abstinent, A for abstinent, M for moderate, or D for drunk. And that was my simple thing that I counted it up. And that's what we do also. We do also what's called a Kickstart moderation program, a month-long introduction to moderation tools. And the first week is really just establishing a baseline and tracking. While tracking will help you, make you more mindful, and will help in itself reduce your drinking because you're recognizing it. But also it's a better testimony than your own memory. You're right. We're such critics that all we think about are our failures. We're not 100%, so we're a failure.
Right. And that's and that goes across really any kind of behavioral change. It's not specific to substance use. It's exercising, it's eating better, it's trying to build a sleep routine. Anything that you're trying to change, it seems that theme really is pretty consistent. It's hard. It's and we tend to look at our most recent shortcomings as being encapsulate of our entire journey when they're not.
Right. And we're taking, we're so unsympathetic to ourselves, and we're sympathetic and empathetic to others. We're taking that lifelong. Most of us have this habit for 10, 20, 30 years, especially in our generation, in my generation anyway, where you were told that if you're going to do anything about your drinking, you have to abstain. If you're worried, you have to abstain. So we didn't do anything until we were in our 40s, 50s. Still, the most interest that we get at MM, the most clicks we get on our links are women who are in their 60s and above. So hopefully that will change to where we get people coming in younger, when we're offering them something other than abstinence as the only solution. So I lost track of what my original question was. There she goes. Off track.
That's fine. Audience, if you guys have any questions or comments, please make sure you get those into the chat area. There are a lot more people out there than normal, but you're all being kind of quiet today. So I know you're all enthralled with what we're talking about, but definitely add some questions and comments in there, because we're going to get to our Q&A in about 10 minutes or so, and love to get you guys involved. So
one thing I want to bring up also, Jenny,
sure,
is that for some people, for someone who's been drinking daily and whether it's heavy or not, abstinence, like you said, what's a negative thing, or who shouldn't do Dryuary? For a lot of us, abstinence, even one day abstinence, is really too big a step to take as a first step. I know I was one of those people that woke up every day with a hangover and said, I'm not drinking today. And by 4:00, of course, I was drinking, or earlier. And that's too big a step for a lot of us. So it's really important so if you're going to go into Dryuary, and if it's just going to make you feel bad about yourself, choose another solution. Choose a step that you can take. We use what's called the Power of One tool. What is one step that you can take right now? Can you delay drinking by 1 hour? Can you drink one drink less? Can you make each drink last an hour? Do something that you can do so you build on success. So if Dryuary, you just feel like, I've got to do this because I want immediate change, and then if you don't make it past 4 days, if you don't make it to the first day, you're beating yourself up, and that's not the right choice for you.
Yeah, we actually wrote kind of an article for TSM people to gauge where they're at and what they could do. And that article gets a lot of traction every year. But pretty much the same thing. Is if you're not having any alcohol-free days at all, trying to jump from 0 to 30 is
Right.
It can actually be dangerous.
Right. Exactly.
It can be very dangerous. But if you've already reduced your drinking by half of what you were before you started doing anything at all, and you're working in alcohol-free days here or there, even if you just try an alcohol-free weekend to start, or an alcohol-free week, or maybe, you know what, you're just a little tentative because it's January, we've already got started, you're not really sure, and you want to go do dry February instead. You can literally do these 30-day challenges, an alcohol-free challenge any day, anytime. And I loved listening to you talk about some of the hints and compromises along the way for people who find it overwhelming. A lot of these are the exact same tips that we give people who are on the Sinclair Method for trying to even work in their first alcohol-free day. Delay 15 minutes a day until you're delaying it several hours. Just keep adding as it feels comfortable. So let's talk a bit about why somebody on moderation management may want to also check out the Sinclair Method and vice versa, because really the two are so compatible for anyone who doesn't have absolute sobriety as their final goal.
Right. Right. And we have several people that are using naltrexone either as the Sinclair Method or on a daily basis, depending on who's prescribing it for them. There is no one solution for everybody. One thing I have found out, especially now that there are more moderation supportive groups out there. It used to be we were the only game in town, and then HAMS came along, or developed, and it was always that moderation just isn't possible. But now, in the last 5 years or maybe more, you've seen so much more moderation support that there's a bunch of groups out there. And what I have found, we're not in competition with each other. At least I don't feel we are. And the people that I work with like you and our sponsors, who all have their own programs, we're not in competition. We realize that when you're struggling with alcohol, you're going to try anything that's out there. You want help. You're going to find something, or you're going to find a combination of programs that work for you. And that's all we want. We want, if we're the doorway to where you find help otherwise, whether that be through medication assisted moderation or abstinence, or if that even brings you to a different moderation group, good. I mean, the purpose is to help people become healthier and happier with themselves. And whether that's from us, through us, or anybody else. So how do we work together? We have several people, like I said, that are using naltrexone as part of their recovery, or other medications. We always say we are not the resource. We are not a Sinclair Method group. I always refer them over to your page. But they support each other. They'll get a thread going, especially on our Facebook group, about what's working for them. They'll find each other, and you can never have too much support in your corner.
Absolutely. I mean, I read this in one of our support groups years ago, and it stuck with me. You can't build a house with just a hammer. You need a full box of tools. And for me, what I have seen over the years is that so many people who have a goal of being, they use the term normal drinker, but I don't actually think that such a thing really exists. I don't think normal is too vague. But when people want to just be able to drink from time to time and only have one, maybe once or twice a month, or some people once or twice a year, just using medication only works with the biological and neurological connections. It doesn't address habits. It doesn't address triggers. And so working with other tools, such as moderation management, can help work on those other aspects. I think of it more as a self-help, just personal growth type of situation, which, let's face it, there's no stigma that is attached to personal growth and self-improvement.
Yeah.
So it's also a great way to frame it in your mind. You're making yourself closer to being the person that you want to be. It's personal growth and self-help. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about some of the tools that moderation management helps people to develop to be successful in recovery?
Okay. Well, when I joined I was drawn to it because it kind of let me design my own recovery. I didn't want anybody to say, you have to do this, and then you have to do this step, and you have to do this step. And I am not critical of AA. It's helped a lot of people. It's helped a lot of people in my family. I really actually like most of its beliefs and everything, but I didn't want to go to meetings. And so I knew it wouldn't work for me because that is the core of their program, is the meetings. And I knew I probably needed to abstain at that time. So is kind of a self-guided peer support program. But I also realized when I was struggling with alcohol, there were times I wanted somebody to say, you need to do this, and then this, and then this. So we came up with a program a couple of years ago called Kickstart Moderation, which just basically is 4 weeks of learning tools and tasks and different strategies to moderate and actually forming a community. And I think probably our biggest tool is our community. And as you said, that stretches. You can be a member of more than one community, and then you can bring the things that you learn from C3 Foundation over to us over at and vice versa. And we learn from each other. So I think that's our biggest tool, not only for accountability, but also to have that support and have somebody that understands us, that understands what we're going through. It's kind of like a positive Me Too movement when you hear somebody's story and you're going, oh, me too. And I've always been afraid to express that or tell my story because, of how bad I feel about it. So that, I think community is our biggest tool. The other thing is there's just some really, common sense tools that we use, like you said, they reduce a little bit at a time, take a step that you can, become accountable in some way. Accountability was a big tool for me. Just saying I was going to do something to a group of people, when I couldn't say that to like my friends and say, I'm not going to drink. And they're all going, oh, come on, so you had that support there. We have meetings. We have daily meetings, several a day, and that has grown a lot. I'm sure you guys have seen that growth through to COVID, that Zoom has been our best friend. So a lot of people love the meetings. They depend on that. As the guys know that I didn't like meetings and didn't want to go to meetings, but now I do, but that took a while. So yeah, I think that's really our communities are our biggest tools.
Well, that sounds wonderful. We've got a comment in the audience about a friend who does dry January in November when her husband attempts to grow his mustache.
Okay.
So that's...
I guess they can support each other in that. No shaving and no drinking.
Hey, whatever works.
Right, exactly.
So in fact, next week we're going to be talking, our special guest is coming in to talk about shifting habits. And so I know we do a lot of talk at C3 talking about making habits manageable, changing them slowly by replacing them without trying to overhaul everything and go from 0 to 120 miles an hour in a blink of an eye.
We use we call it a divorce tool. We have some, like we brought up cooking. A lot of people think I haven't cooked a meal in years, without having a glass of wine or something. And, it's like divorce just one thing from drinking, and, whether that's coming in the minute you get in the house and going for a beer, get a glass of, get a bottle of water instead. Just that one thing, just break that one little routine that you have. Yeah. And,
so what do you think about all of the now there are like craft brewers who do non-alcoholic beers that are also jumping in on the dry January theme and doing like dry January packs of NA beers. Have you
I
seen
think it's
that?
wonderful. I do. I think it's wonderful. I wish I was a beer drinker. I wish they would come up with a good NA wine. We're still in search of that holy grail.
Yeah,
and nobody's found one.
Yeah, I keep seeing that. I was never really a wine drinker to begin with, so looking for NA wines has never been something that I have wanted to do. But when I was drinking largely craft beers because I loved the uniqueness. I liked trying the different styles from the different breweries, and so I love that the NA beer industry is really starting to take off in that niche. But everybody who puts anything in about wine, they're all almost always, I would say 99 out of 100 of them are, well, I gave it a try and it was lackluster. But the
NA beers have been a great tool for people that are beer drinkers, and I've heard lots of them say they like them even better taste wise than the regular beers. So, we had one man who did dryuary, I think last year was his first year, and really relied on the NA beers. And after that, he's gone abstinent now. And he found that he could. And he worked for the alcohol industry. He was big up in the alcohol industry. So it is a great tool. And, there are some actually other liquors out there. I think the NA gin and stuff and tequila by Ritual. We get to hear that. I hear those are pretty good.
I haven't tried that yet, but the thing that I do miss about drinking alcohol was tequila. So I'm afraid to try the Ritual tequila because I am just afraid that I'm going to be disappointed.
I know.
And so I've just really dragged my feet on it and just stuck with the NA beers. We've got one of our commenters from the audience who's in the UK says that they love dry January because the supermarkets in the UK put the alcohol-free options first and foremost, making them easier to find.
That's good. Yeah, because they are hard to find in the liquor store. I live in a really small town in Colorado most of the time. And I was really surprised one day when I walked in. I mean, this is probably smaller than most people's closets, walk-in closets. And on the counter, there was a 6-pack or 4-pack, however they come, of well-being. And, and so I'm like, wow, that's cool, So otherwise you have to go ask for them. But.
And we have a first-time chatter out there that says, I tried the Sinclair Method for a year, and unfortunately it didn't work for me. I found moderation management a year ago, and it has changed my life. So I'm grateful for both. Mary is an amazing, hardworking woman, and is blessed to have her.
Oh, well, thank you. There's that one fan I paid to come.
Well, they're doing a good job then.
That's right. She earned it, or he earned it, whatever. So, that's great. So,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I stopped drinking for health reasons, but it's funny, when I first started with C3, my first year, I did a personal, what I called a one and done challenge. I did it for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to just build empathy. If I, as somebody without an addiction, had a hard time saying no to the second glass, then it caused me to think, okay, so people with an addiction, of course they're going to have a much harder time, but also because it ended up being a great conversation starter. Oh, how come you're only having one tonight? And so it allowed me to then talk about the work that I do and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely am glad to see more non-alcoholic options out there now that I've stopped drinking, and love that they're actually beyond what O'Doul's used to be. They're no longer just that one alcohol-free beer that you'd have begrudgingly and not enjoy.
I was a Jack Daniels drinker and for decades, and I'm like, God, if they would come up with the Jack Daniels, there's just you get your favorite taste, but I don't want to trigger anybody
Yeah.
or anything. But you talk about the one and done, and yeah, that's the other thing about beating ourselves up. I think one thing I've really seen in the last 2 years is also a lot more books that have come out that explain the physiological effects that alcohol has and what it does to us and why we have such a problem saying no to that second or third drink, and not with the bent towards, okay, if you're feeling this way, you should abstain. It's just the way it is. It's the chemical properties of alcohol. It's going to make us want more. Uh, and so you've got to respect that instead of just sitting there saying, I'm just too weak. I'm such a weak person. I cannot turn. I can't. There's the other story we always tell ourselves that becomes the truth. Once I start, I can't stop. Well, yes, you can, but you've got to learn how to put the mechanisms in place to allow that to happen. You can't do shots, you can't do shot right after the other and then stop. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that can do shots or have one shot and stop. I was never a shot person, but those seem to be lethal. But you have to learn about the power that alcohol has over us.
Well, and
physiologically.
And I just saw an article a couple weeks ago that they did a study where women in particular can be driven to overdrink by stress alone, whereas for the most part, men have to already be drinking for stress to cause them to overdrink. So sometimes just knowing also the differences in physiology can also help, because you know what to look for. Knowing what the risks are helps you look for different things. Like we see people also who aren't aware that if they've had certain weight loss surgery, that can make them a higher risk for developing alcohol use disorder. So it's like the more proactive a person can be in trying to use moderating tools, whether that's with or without the assistance of medication, the more proactive you are, the better your chances of success are, or at least you'll get to a success faster because you haven't let yourself fall down the rabbit hole by constantly telling yourself what a failure you are.
Right. And I think another thing about some advantages that are probably also a detriment, not to make it hard for abstinent periods, is that we all have learned to use alcohol as a stress reduction, as basically our bottle, open the bottle and it does whatever we want it to, reduces our stress, relaxes us, makes us happier. And that's probably one of the hard things when you're in an abstinent period is to realize some of these feelings are normal. We're not, it's normal to be nervous before like a meeting like this. And we've just always dulled those feelings, and we've got to learn how to live with those feelings again and recognize that what is normal and what is actually an amped up feeling, what is too much anxiety that needs to be dealt with. Because anyway, for me, who drank from the time I was 14, that I didn't really know that was all normal feelings. They were always bad. If I felt nervous, that's a bad feeling. Do something about it. If I felt anxious, if I felt worried, that's a bad feeling. Do something about it. Get rid of it. And some of that's just part of living. And I think
absolutely, it is absolutely just a part of living, and it's just normal that in any situation, if you don't feel good in the situation, you want to change that. Mm-hmm. It's just that we've, from the time we see television and hear radio, we're inundated with the advertisements that tell us that alcohol is the fix for those feelings.
For everything. Right. And
well, we are almost out of time. So audience, get any last minute questions or comments in. And Mary, what's one thing you'd like to leave the audience with today?
I would like to leave them with, if you are interested in dry January at all, or abstaining or moderation, don't let it scare you. Don't be afraid. Don't, I heard so often, like, I'm afraid I'll fail. If you fail, so what? How is that going to be different than where you are right now? And if you get one abstinent day, is that an improvement? If you just read the post, if you just join the community and lurk, and maybe you'll be ready for it next year, or maybe you'll be ready next month or in June. If it just gets you to where you start working towards it and you start losing your fear of trying something new that will change your relationship.
All right. Well, we are almost out of time. Audience, you have been wonderful as always. Thank you for spending the last hour with us. Are you guys inspired to take on the rest of January for a dry January now? I hope so. So, audience, go ahead and fill that chat area with some gratitude for today's guest. I hope that you found as much value in this discussion as I have. If you came in late, or if you want to share or watch the stream again, we will have today's video up on our website, YouTube, Vimeo, Anchor, and Spotify, all hopefully by the end of today. And as soon as we're able to, we'll add the transcripts and closed captioning as well. Next week, we're going to be joined by Katie Lane from Embody Daily and the newly created Thrive community. And we're going to talk a bit about shifting habits, so start thinking about those questions now. If you found value in this broadcast, we hope you'll hit the donate button in our profile or head to our website to make a donation at c3foundation.org/donate. You can follow our channel to get broadcast alerts and subscribe to our channel to go ad-free and to get some bonus emoji to use. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can subscribe to our channel for free. You can also send gift subscriptions to other viewers, cheer, drop bits, host our channel, etc. If you'd like to suggest a guest or topic for a future broadcast, we've got a link to a Google form that has been dropping in the chat and is also on our main schedule page. If you're on the Sinclair Method and you're looking for more peer support, or you just want to join the C3 Foundation community, we've got you covered with groups on Facebook, Discord, and the Options Save Lives forum. And I will make sure that when we post our video for today's episode, that on our website, there will be both a Dryuary and a moderation management link that you can click on to check out more about both moderation management and Dry January. And that's it for the day. Mary, everybody is saying many thanks, and they're glad you're here. And I will get you all of the links next week. But thank you so much for being here with us. And audience, be gentle with yourself and with others. We will see you again next week, same time, right here on Twitch. Bye, everybody.
You've been watching the Options Save Lives weekly live stream, hosted by Executive Director Jenny Williamson and produced by the C3 Foundation with the support of R Street Institute and other generous supporters. For more information about the C3 Foundation or the Sinclair Method, visit our website at c3foundation.org. If you have a question you want answered live on air, to make guest suggestions, or to support the show, let us know. You can reach us through our website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or on Discord. Join us each week as we continue to discuss more ways to help you build a better relationship with alcohol, or to eliminate it completely. Because recovery from alcohol use disorder is not a one-size-fits-all process. Options are available, and options save lives.